If you have spent any time at all in the community of fighting manga fans, you have probably encountered the age-old Baki versus Kengan discussion slash debate in some form or another. Chances are, however, you left feeling confused because it quickly devolved into a series of back and forth arguments using ultra specific examples from random spots in either series. So, today, I'm here to not only settle this debate, but to do so in a way that anyone, hopefully, can understand, even people who haven't started either series yet. I will also be keeping the video as spoiler-free as I can, but be warned, there will be some times where spoilers are just simply unavoidable. So where do we begin? Well, I am going to be focusing on three main aspects of these series: fights, art, and story. Now, obviously, this is leaving some things out, but for the sake of making a coherent and streamlined, more importantly, video, I think it's forgivable to focus on only the most important aspects. And I also think that we can all agree that those three things are, in fact, the most important when it comes to, well, really any action series, but fighting manga especially. For each of those topics, I'm going to be breaking it down as a sort of isolated battle and declaring which series is superior in that specific category. Then I will end it with an overview and give a final summary on which series is better in my opinion and why. We will start with the least important of the three and talk about the story of Baki and Kengan. So first off, let me just say that story is not exactly the strong suit of either of these manga. So if you were thinking about starting these and you were focusing on the story or thinking you could focus on a really deep story, no. I'm not saying that stories are bad. It's just clear that the lion's share of care and time went into other things. So I would say that story-wise, these two series fall on very different points on the spectrum, and we are going to be talking about Kengan first because Baki is, well, it's a lot. The story of Kengan is perfect for a fighting manga, in my opinion. It gives information in small glimpses versus massive info dumps all at once, and it is easily digested if so desired. And that is key. If you so desire, you can read into the story. But if you're just here for big boys punching each other, then no big deal. You can find it just as enjoyable. You don't need to know the deep lore reason behind each fight. You can just sit in awe at the absolute size of these lads. However, if you're someone like me who likes being given a little bit of a breadcrumb of information to cling on to like a cute little mouse from time to time, you're in luck. There is, in fact, a storyline to follow that involves actually all kinds of wild things, because Kengan takes place in what I would describe as an alternate Earth where technology and world events are a bit different. They're similar, but definitely different, and not to the degree where I would classify it as science fiction, but there's some cloning and other futuristic things going on. However, the story is not so complicated that you need to spend a bunch of time figuring things out. Like I said before, it's simple and it is there to latch onto if you want it, but it won't take you out of the fighting or ruin your experience if you choose to ignore it. Characters are honestly the same way in Kengan. Most of them have at least some deeper backstory that is hinted at or at least partially revealed, but if you don't care about that, then you don't need to know. Even if you don't pick up on everything related to Oma's mysterious past, you can still appreciate him as just an out-of-touch battle junkie main character. Now we talk about Baki, and like I said before, um it's really something. It struggles with the story, and let me tell you why, in my opinion. It is a series that had a clear ending, and it had a very strong ending point from the beginning, and it ignored it. The entire series was leading up to Baki versus his father, the ultimate battle that we were promised. Sure, there had to be many detours on the way, but it was understandable because Baki had a long way to go to surpass his dad, which left ample room for the series to go on with more twists, more tournaments, and more fighting. Then we get to this huge final climax, and Baki loses. Yeah, no, his dad clapped them cheeks. I don't mean it ended up like his dad was the victor after a very long and grueling battle. I mean, Yujiro made Baki look like he hadn't improved at all in the many years since their first confrontation. And beyond that, Baki doesn't have a story. That's just the way it is. It is literally men going from place to place to fight each other in various ways. Sometimes weapons are seen as pussy shit, and other times they're cool with it. Sometimes a frozen caveman from thousands of years ago shows up and thaws out to run amok like a Scooby-Doo villain. Sometimes actual magic is used to suck souls out of the afterlife into a new clone body of a warrior from centuries ago. Sometimes fighters intentionally disable themselves because they say it will make them stronger. To call it a confusing mess would be far too generous. It is chaos incarnate, which is its charm. It might sound kind of negative, all these things I've been saying, but honestly, the nonsensical nature of everything is what makes me come back month after month to read Baki and Friends' latest shenanigans. Just know beforehand that any realism you might desire will not be founded. I think I had a stroke. Any realism you desire will not be found within the pages of a volume of Baki. And you certainly won't find any realism in the art of Baki. It is very stylized, and it's also probably the biggest turnoff for most people who decide to never read Baki. That just isn't what people look like. That isn't even really close to what a human looks like. So clearly, the author has a very strong idea of what the ideal masculine form should be. You should have more muscle definition on one cheek than most people do on their entire back. So, Baki's art is one of those things that you either vibe with and enjoy, or you think is disgusting and can't really get past. It's just like One Piece in that regard. Kengan, on the other hand, sticks far more closely to actual human bodies and muscle groups. Not only that, but the art in Kengan has improved a lot over time. So if you tried reading Kenga Ashura and you didn't love the art, you thought it was maybe a little bit lacking at the beginning, you're in luck, because by the time we get to Omega, the art is just pushing new levels. Ashura didn't have bad art in my opinion, but Omega has just, I mean, it's taken it to the next level. Characters look so much better, and the panels are able to convey so much more emotion and energy. It really is just amazing. Which series has better art though? Who wins in this category? Well, I don't really know if I can say. Kengan has an objectively better story, but for art, neither series is bad, they're just very different. So I can only tell you which series I prefer the art of, and I guess that is ultimately the entire point of this video is which one do I think is better. For me, it's close. It's so close, in fact, that depending on the day you asked me, my answer for art preference might change. However, I think I'm going to say that, in my opinion, Baki art is more compelling. While it isn't for everyone, and I understand that, I think once you start reading the manga, you will enjoy the weird style more and more. Baki has a fucking wild story, so it needs a very distinct art style to match up. Kengan aren't very good too, though. Kengan look nice, me like. Okay, fight time. We're here. Fights are what these series are all about. It's the most important. It's what everyone reads / watches these series for. So, let's get to it. I can tell you right now, objectively, that Kengan has much better fights than Baki. It's actually not even close in my eyes, and I don't understand how anyone could argue against this. And it comes down to Baki being almost too absurd and too boring to even enjoy. Now, I'm not saying that realism needs to permeate every frame and panel of these two series, but Kengan at least grounds itself in reality and then tweaks it slightly, follows that old rule. And Baki is just going buck wild and doing whatever it wants. So Baki really ends up being just pure spectacle that is hard to buy into and care about. And honestly, the whole fun of the series is waiting to see what insane fight will happen next. But you don't really care about the stakes because it's so cartoonish and over the top. Baki really does feel like a series out of time. It still manages to bring that super weird late 80s, early 90s energy to the pages today. And that alone makes it something worth reading because, the kids these days, they don't know about stuff, and like, I don't, the past was better or something. Obviously, like I said before, this is personal preference, but my personal preference in this case is just objectively right. I think Kengan fights surpass Baki's easily. The fact that 90% of what happens in Kengan could actually be done by a real human being goes a long way to making me more invested in the story. Shit, even most superhuman, in quotes, things that Kengan has, like release, aren't actually impossible for humans conceptually. It's just that they can't be done right now. And I know I said before that part of Baki's appeal was its over the top cartoonish nature, but honestly, it can piss me off at times that the series does not take itself seriously. That was a very strange sentence to say. And Kengan has such a wide variety of fights, everything from long, drawn out slugfests to lethal one shots. And what that means is that the series is constantly refreshing itself and keeping the reader or viewer on their toes because you just simply do not know how things are going to end up. It was a rule for quite some time in Kengan that deaths didn't really occur. I think there was one or two that were extreme outlier accidents and were treated as such, and then boom, it gets switched up, and later on in the series, we see like, shit, that guy is dead. So you do not know how things are going to end up in Kengan. While Baki can be outrageous and entertaining, it can also be very boring and feel like it's just wasting your time. A great example of this was the Escaped Prisoner arc, which you might remember seeing on Netflix a couple years ago. It got animated. It was very formulaic. Prisoners would show up somewhere, cause a bit of a ruckus, and then retreat. Each prisoner had maybe 3, 4, 5 encounters that all went this way up until their individual finale. Then they each had a one-on-one face-off with a main character and were beaten brutally and quite frankly excessively. They were crippled either permanently or temporarily, and I understand that this is an example using a specific art and not necessarily representative of the entire series, but it does do a decent job of showcasing the formula that Baki often sticks to, which is new character or characters will show up, beat the ass of a couple main characters, and then ultimately just get shit whipped when someone finally decides to get serious against them. And I personally still enjoy the series despite this, but I fully understand if it causes some people to get bored and drop it. You can't really blame them for it. Really quick, before we go, I want to mention a couple things that didn't fit in with the earlier talking points but are noteworthy. First off is Baki, or more specifically, the author of Baki, has a very perplexing habit of inserting United States political figures into his manga. So, George Bush, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama, just to name a few. Can I even show this image? This image seems evil for some reason. But, anyways, secondly, Baki has spin-off series, and that includes a Retsu Isekai manga, and I can confidently say that the spin-offs are far better than mainline Baki at this point, so go read those if you haven't. And lastly, I wanted to talk about Kengan Ashura and Kengan Omega. So, just to make it clear for anyone who hasn't started the Kengan series, Omega is a direct sequel, or sorry, not direct actually, it is a sequel to Ashura, and chronologically it goes Ashura, time skip, then Omega. However, that being said, the Kengan series was written in a way that if you want to, you can skip Ashura. If you desire to, you can just negate it entirely, and I I have to imagine that the author did this on purpose, and I would personally recommend reading the entire series. But it's worth noting that you can skip Kengan Ashura if you really want to for some reason, and just start at Kengan Omega. So let's finish this video up by answering the age-old question once and for all: which is better, Baki or Kengan? And it's Kengan. I'm sure that comes as no surprise to you guys given my overall tone in this video, but I want to make it clear that I am not saying Baki is bad. Shit, honestly, Kengan would not even exist without Baki. I love both of these series, and at the end of the day, I want people to read both of them, but the one I would always recommend to other people is hands down Kengan. I think it is just a far superior pure fighting manga series. Not to mention, they have really trended in opposite directions. Recently, especially, Kengan has only been getting better over time, and Baki has only been getting worse. And I feel sad about that because I think the legacy of Baki would be far stronger if the story had ended when it was supposed to and focused entirely on side stories or alternate canons after that. And I hope that somehow that geriatric manga fuck who's writing Baki can bring himself some redemption with the current Baki, but I don't think that is very likely given the slow and steady drop in quality. Thanks for watching. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed and are maybe now a little bit tempted to start one or both of these series if you were in fact on the fence before watching this. Kengan rocks, and I will see you guys with another video very soon.